Ladies and gentlemen, today, I invite you into a conversation that may sound strange at first, and perhaps even laughable, but behind the strangeness lies something ancient, something vital. The idea that true transformation often begins in the most unlikely places. Breathe into your testicles. Yes, I said it, not as a joke, not as a gimmick, but as an invitation to explore the deeper relationship between your breath, your body, and your buried power. Let us begin, not with the physical, but with the symbolic. The lower body, often seen as base, shameful, animalistic, is the seat of a tremendous force. In many ancient traditions, it was considered the root of creation, the wellspring of vitality. When we ignore or suppress this region, we split ourselves in two. One part spiritual, the other exiled in shadow. This technique, breathing into the testicles, is not about filling them with air, but with attention, with consciousness. It is about reclaiming the parts of ourselves we have been taught to ignore. When we breathe deeply and guide our awareness downward, we are making contact with the libido, not merely sexual energy, but life force itself. Thought. This is the same force that fuels our creativity, drives our ambition, and awakens our longing for something greater. Too often, this energy is spent compulsively, lost through habits we barely question, but when held, when retained, it becomes fuel. It rises, it transforms. What was once purely physical becomes deeply psychological, spiritual even. You see, retention without awareness becomes repression, but awareness without retention becomes fantasy. It is only when both are practiced together that alchemy begins. To breathe into your testicles is to say, I am willing to feel the full power of my being, without fear, without shame, without escape. It is an act of radical wholeness, of integrating that which we were taught to deny. This practice is not a shortcut to enlightenment. It is a path to self-mastery, a ritual of reuniting the higher and lower, the mind and the body, the conscious and the unconscious. And yes, it is strange. But in a world that has forgotten the sacredness of the body, sometimes the strange is exactly what we need to remember who we really are. When we speak of breathing into the testicles, it might sound purely physical or even bizarre. Yet beneath this surface lies a profound symbolic act, one that calls us to reconnect with a part of ourselves that is often neglected or dismissed. The human body is not merely a vessel for biological functions. It is a living symbol, a landscape where the unconscious speaks through sensations, impulses, and energies. This is especially true of the lower centers of the body where primal forces reside. In the tradition of depth psychology, the body is understood as a sacred text, written in a language of symbols and images. Every sensation, every organ, every breath carries meaning beyond the literal. The testicles, in this symbolic language, represent more than reproductive organs. They are the seat of creative potential, the origin of generative power. To breathe into this area is to bring consciousness to a place that normally operates beneath the threshold of awareness, an act of illuminating the shadowed depths within. This shadow is not something to be feared or rejected. It is the hidden part of the self, the reservoir of instincts, drives, and energies that society often asks us to repress. The testicles symbolize the primal life force, the energy of desire and creation that pulses quietly beneath the surface of civilized existence. When we learn to breathe consciously into this region, we begin to reclaim the energy that has been scattered or suppressed, gathering it into a source of power rather than a source of shame or confusion. The breath in this context becomes more than just air moving in and out of the lungs. It is a bridge between the conscious and unconscious worlds, a medium through which psychic energy is mobilized. Breathing into the testicles is a way of directing this energy consciously to a center of life and vitality. This focused awareness transforms what might be unconscious or automatic into something integrated and alive within the self. This process is deeply symbolic because it mirrors a universal pattern seen throughout myth and ritual: the descent into the underworld, the return to the womb of the earth, the journey into the very roots of being. Just as the hero in a myth must descend into darkness to find the treasure, so must we descend inward toward the primal sources of our life force. The testicles, hidden and protected, symbolize the treasure chest of our vitality and potential. By breathing into this part of the body, we enact a ceremony of remembering, of bringing back together what has been divided or lost. This symbolic union is not merely psychological, it is embodied. It recognizes that the soul is not separate from the body, but expressed through it. The energy stored in the testicles is a kind of psychic currency, waiting to be consciously invested in the ongoing process of self-realization. Moreover, this practice challenges the modern tendency to dissociate from our bodies, to see them as obstacles or machines rather than as living expressions of our deepest nature. It asks us to cultivate a kind of reverence for the physical, a willingness to engage with it on symbolic and energetic levels. In doing so, we begin to dissolve the sharp boundaries between mind and body, between spirit and flesh. This integration is crucial because the testicles do not only represent sexual energy, but also the fundamental creative impulse that manifests in all areas of life: work, relationships, and spiritual practice. When this energy is consciously reclaimed through breath and attention, it no longer remains a mere instinct to be gratified or denied. It becomes a dynamic wellspring that fuels transformation. In this way, breathing into the testicles is not simply a physical exercise. It is a symbolic act of awakening. It calls us to recognize the profound connection between our inner life and the body that houses it. It invites us to honor the primal forces within ourselves as vital sources of strength, creativity, and wholeness. Through this symbolic breath, we begin the process of healing the split between our conscious identity and the deeper currents that shape us, reconnecting with the fullness of what it means to be alive. Harnessing the libido, the term libido, often brings to mind images limited to sexual desire, impulse, or instinct. Yet, to confine libido to mere physical passion is to misunderstand its true nature. At its core, libido is a far-reaching life energy, a fundamental psychic force that animates not only sexuality but creativity, ambition, and spiritual yearning. It is the vitality that moves us forward in every realm of existence, the spark that ignites the fire of transformation within the human soul. To harness this energy is to undertake a process of conscious redirection. The technique of breathing into the testicles, then, is not simply about physical control, but about learning to channel this powerful force inward. Rather than allowing it to be dissipated unconsciously or squandered through automatic behaviors, this practice asks us to become the stewards of our own vital energy. This redirection of libido is crucial because when left unchecked, it tends to scatter like wind, dissipating its power and leaving the individual feeling drained, restless, or fragmented. Many men, and indeed many people in general, unconsciously expend their libido in habits driven by external gratification, addiction, or compulsive behavior. This cycle leads not to empowerment, but to exhaustion and disconnection from one's deeper self. Harnessing libido begins with awareness, becoming conscious of the flow of this energy within the body and mind. The breath acts as a conduit, a tool to trace the movement of libido from the testicles, where it is deeply rooted as a physical and symbolic source upward into the higher centers of awareness. Through focused breathing, the practitioner learns to hold and circulate this energy, transforming it from raw instinct into a refined force that can be applied creatively and spiritually. This transformation echoes a principle found in many spiritual traditions, that sexual energy, when conserved and transmuted, can fuel not only personal power but transcendence. It is a shift from being a slave to desire to becoming the alchemist of one's own vitality. Instead of libido being a force that drives one outward toward fleeting pleasures, it becomes a force that moves inward and upward, nurturing growth, insight, and expression in all areas of life. In practical terms, this means that the energy once devoted to momentary gratification can be redirected toward creative projects, intellectual pursuits, leadership, and deeper emotional connection. The power held in reserve is no longer wasted but consciously invested, leading to a profound increase in stamina, focus, and a sense of personal integrity. But more than this, libido harnessed in this way reveals itself as a sacred force, one that connects the individual to the mysteries of life itself. It is not merely a biological impulse, but a bridge to the numinous, the realm of myth, symbol, and spiritual awakening. When the breath brings awareness to the testicles, it awakens a dormant power that speaks in images, dreams, and intuition. This power, once consciously engaged, can awaken a profound creativity that is often misunderstood as purely external accomplishment. True creativity arises from this inner reservoir of libido, an energy that shapes the very fabric of our experience, our relationships, and our capacity for meaning. It fuels the impulse to bring forth new life, new ideas, and new possibilities in the world. Furthermore, the conscious harnessing of libido requires the individual to confront and transcend cultural taboos, shame and fear surrounding sexuality and bodily energy. Society often teaches us to view sexual energy as dangerous or shameful, which leads to repression and disconnection. Yet by learning to breathe into the testicles and cultivate this energy, one begins to reclaim a lost relationship with one's own vitality. This reclamation is an act of empowerment and healing. It restores a balance between the physical and the spiritual, between instinct and consciousness. It calls the practitioner to become a sovereign of their own energy, no longer subject to unconscious drives, but capable of using libido as a tool for self-actualization. In this way, the strange practice of breathing into the testicles becomes a profound discipline of self-mastery. It is a conscious engagement with one of the most potent forces within the human psyche, a force that, when harnessed and transformed, can become the foundation for a life of depth, power, and meaning. Reintegration of the shadow, one of the most profound challenges in personal development, lies in confronting the shadow, the hidden, unconscious parts of ourselves that society, culture, and even our own minds compel us to reject or deny. The shadow is composed of instincts, desires, fears, and impulses that exist outside our conscious identity, often deemed unacceptable or unworthy. When it comes to masculine energy, this shadow frequently resides in the lower body, particularly in the testicles, which symbolize primal power, virility, and deep creative potential. The practice of breathing into the testicles offers a unique path toward the reintegration of this shadow. By consciously directing breath and awareness into this often neglected area, we initiate a dialogue with the parts of ourselves that have been exiled or repressed. This act is a form of courageous acknowledgement. We turn toward what is uncomfortable, strange, or taboo in order to reclaim it as part of a unified self. To understand the significance of this reintegration, it's important to recognize how the shadow operates. It is neither evil nor inherently negative. Rather, it is the repository of all those impulses and qualities we have disowned, qualities that, if ignored, can exert unconscious control over us. This can manifest as compulsive behaviors, emotional volatility, or a pervasive feeling of inner conflict. When the shadow is unacknowledged, it remains a force that works behind the scenes, sabotaging efforts toward wholeness and fulfillment. Breathing into the testicles is a way of inviting this shadow energy into consciousness. The breath serves as a bridge, moving life energy from the depths of the body into the awareness of the mind. By doing so, the practitioner begins to dissolve the rigid barriers between what is accepted and what is rejected within the self. The shadow, once feared and hidden, becomes a source of insight and power. This process of reintegration is transformative. Instead of denying or disowning the instinctual drives located in the testicles, the individual learns to accept and work with them. These energies, once feared as dangerous or shameful, reveal themselves to be vital forces of creativity, vitality, and courage. The very impulses that seem to threaten stability become allies in the quest for authenticity. Moreover, this reintegration confronts deep-seated cultural narratives that fragment the masculine identity. In many societies, men are taught to separate their higher intellectual or spiritual self from their lower bodily instincts. This division creates inner conflict and alienation. Breathing into the testicles symbolically reunites these aspects, restoring a sense of coherence and integrity. Through this practice, the practitioner becomes aware of the symbolic meaning behind the bodily sensations and emotions that arise. The testicles are not merely physical organs. They are the seat of potent symbolic energies connected to life, death, and rebirth, the very cycles of transformation that shape human experience. To breathe into this region is to participate in these cycles consciously, acknowledging the shadow as an essential part of the whole. Psychologically, the reintegration of the shadow through this technique can lead to profound healing. It reduces the inner fragmentation that causes anxiety, shame, or compulsive behavior. As the shadow is brought into the light of consciousness, the individual gains a deeper understanding of their own motivations, fears, and desires. This self-knowledge is the foundation of true freedom. Spiritually, this reintegration echoes ancient rites of initiation and transformation, where the initiate descends into the depths of the self to retrieve hidden wisdom. The shadow is not a monster to be defeated, but a guide to be befriended. By breathing into the testicles, we honor this guide and invite its gifts of strength and insight. The reintegration of the shadow also calls for patience and compassion. The energies we uncover can be intense and unfamiliar. The breath acts as an anchor, grounding the practitioner as they navigate these inner landscapes. This journey requires a willingness to face discomfort and uncertainty, knowing that true growth lies beyond avoidance. In essence, breathing into the testicles is a radical act of wholeness. It challenges the fragmentation imposed by external forces and internal fears. It transforms the shadow from a source of alienation into a source of vitality. By consciously engaging with this hidden part of ourselves, we open the door to a richer, more integrated experience of life. Psychophysical unity at the heart of the practice of breathing into the testicles lies a fundamental truth. The mind and body are not separate entities, but aspects of a unified whole. This unity is often obscured in modern life, where the body is treated as a machine or an object, and the mind is seen as the seat of consciousness and identity. Yet the most profound transformations occur when these two realms are reunited, or when the psychological and the physical engage in a dynamic dialogue that fosters wholeness. Breathing, as a bridge between the conscious mind and the unconscious body, plays a crucial role in this reunification. It is the living thread that connects the breath of spirit with the pulse of flesh, guiding awareness into parts of the body that have long been neglected or disowned. When the breath is directed toward the testicles, it brings conscious attention to an area rich with life energy and symbolic meaning. This focused awareness awakens a deeper somatic intelligence and invites the psyche to inhabit the body fully. In many spiritual and psychological traditions, the body is viewed as a sacred temple, a vessel through which the soul experiences and expresses itself. Yet in everyday life, we often experience a split. We live primarily in our heads, caught up in thoughts, plans, and abstractions, while our bodies remain automatic, reactive, or numb. This split creates tension and fragmentation, leaving us disconnected from the very source of our vitality. By consciously breathing into the testicles, the practitioner initiates a process of reunification. This practice demands that the mind slow down and listen to the body's language. It calls attention to the sensations, energies, and emotions residing deep within the pelvis, often a seat of unresolved tension, fear, or suppressed desire. The breath becomes a tool for embodied presence, a way to bridge the gap between mind and matter. This psychophysical unity is transformative because it restores a natural flow of energy throughout the entire organism. The testicles, as a source of potent life force, are often isolated energetically due to habits of repression or dissociation. When breath and awareness are brought into this area, that energy can circulate freely, nourishing both body and psyche. This circulation supports not only physical health, but also emotional resilience and mental clarity. Furthermore, psychophysical unity invites a radical acceptance of the body as it is, a living, breathing expression of the self, not something to be controlled or resisted. Through this practice, the testicles cease to be merely biological organs or sources of shame. They become energetic centers, vital to the individual's sense of wholeness and presence in the world. On a deeper level, breathing into the testicles enacts a symbolic reunion of opposites. The lower body often represents the instinctual, unconscious, and animal aspects of human nature, while the mind embodies reason, consciousness, and spirit. The practice invites these seemingly opposing forces to meet and harmonize within the individual, dissolving the false dichotomy between body and mind. This unity has practical implications as well. When a person experiences themselves as a unified whole, mind and body aligned, they tend to move through life with greater ease, confidence, and authenticity. They become more attuned to their own needs and boundaries, better able to manage stress, and more capable of engaging fully in relationships and creative endeavors. Breathing into the testicles also cultivates a heightened somatic awareness that can ripple into all aspects of life. This increased body awareness is a cornerstone of many therapeutic and meditative traditions because it grounds the individual in the present moment. It fosters a deep sense of embodiment, where one feels connected to the earth, the body's rhythms, and the flow of life itself. Moreover, psychophysical unity nurtures a profound sense of self-possession. It allows a person to inhabit their own body with a sense of sovereignty rather than alienation or shame. This sense of ownership is especially important in a culture that often objectifies or neglects the body's deeper energies. The practice also reveals the subtle interplay between breath, energy, and consciousness. As breath animates the body, it awakens dormant potential, inviting the individual to participate actively in their own process of transformation. This engagement is neither purely mental nor purely physical, but a dance between the two, a fluid integration that expands the boundaries of self-understanding. In this way, the strange act of breathing into the testicles becomes a powerful ritual of reconnection. It offers a pathway back to a more natural, embodied state where mind and body are no longer at odds but work together as partners on the journey toward wholeness. Transmutation through imagination. At the core of the practice of breathing into the testicles lies a subtle but profound psychological alchemy. Transmutation through imagination. This concept invites us to understand that the power of this technique is not found simply in the mechanical movement of air or the physical sensation alone, but in the active engagement of the mind's creative faculty. Imagination. Imagination, in its deepest sense, is not mere fantasy or escapism. It is a potent psychic function that bridges the conscious and unconscious, the visible and invisible. It shapes perception, directs energy, and generates meaning. When we imagine breath moving into the testicles, we are engaging a symbolic process that initiates transformation within the psyche, transformation within the psyche. The breath becomes a living image, a vessel for psychic energy that can be consciously directed and transformed. This transmutation is an ancient principle found in many spiritual and psychological traditions. It is the process by which base energies, instinctual drives, physical impulses, raw passions are not suppressed or expelled, but refined, elevated, and converted into higher expressions of creativity, insight, and spiritual awakening. The breath, combined with vivid imaginative focus, becomes the alchemical tool that catalyzes this transformation. When one breathes deeply and envisions the air moving into the testicles, the imagination engages with the primal source of life, energy. This is not about literal airflow, but about directing attention and intention. The image of breath, traveling downward, awakens dormant forces, energizes the body, and summons the unconscious libido to rise and circulate in new ways. Imagination, in this context, acts as a mediator between physical sensation and psychic experience. The symbolic visualization of breath moving into the testicles activates deep archetypal patterns within the psyche. It calls forth images of creation, fertility, power, and renewal, images that resonate with the collective unconscious and tap into a universal source of meaning. This process of imaginative transmutation allows the practitioner to reclaim what has been lost or fragmented. It transforms sexual energy, often misunderstood or stigmatized, into a conscious creative force. The energy that once was spent unconsciously or dissipated in distraction becomes a wellspring of vitality that can be consciously harnessed for growth. The imagination's role in this practice also underscores the profound connection between mind and body. The body becomes the stage on which inner dramas play out, while the mind, the imaginative faculty, directs the flow of energy with purpose and awareness. This union of imagination and breath creates a dynamic interplay, a dance between inner experience and physical reality. Moreover, transmutation through imagination is inherently empowering. It gives the individual agency over their own energy, transforming passive experience into active creation. This shift is crucial because it moves the practitioner from being a victim of instinctual drives to becoming an artist of their own psychic and physical landscape. This creative process has ripple effects beyond the immediate practice. As libido is transmuted through imaginative breathwork, it infuses all aspects of life, work, relationships, art, and spiritual pursuits with renewed energy and inspiration. The subtle power harnessed through this technique radiates outward, enhancing clarity, presence, and personal magnetism. Imagination also opens the door to symbolic healing. It allows the individual to encounter and reshape the images and narratives that govern their inner world. By consciously visualizing the breath's path into the testicles, one rewrites the story of this energy from one of loss, shame, or fragmentation to one of wholeness, power, and integration. This process is not merely mental but deeply felt. The images evoked through imagination stir emotional and somatic responses, creating a fertile ground for transformation. It is a holistic alchemy, engaging body, mind, and spirit in a unified act of creation. Furthermore, transmutation through imagination challenges the purely literal mindset dominant in modern culture. It restores the importance of myth, symbol, and ritual as pathways to deeper understanding and transformation. By embracing imaginative visualization, the practitioner reconnects with the timeless human tradition of using symbols to access hidden dimensions of the self. In this way, the seemingly strange technique of breathing into the testicles reveals itself as a sophisticated psychological practice. It harnesses the creative power of imagination to transform primal energy into conscious life force, enabling a profound alchemical shift within the individual.